Well, in the newspaper, it says that young people are leaving religion, and it compared your generation to my generation on 4 important questions. Number 1, is religion very important? 59% of my generation said yes. 41% of your generation said yes. Do you attend weekly religious services? 38% of your generation said yes. 27% of my generation said yes. Do you pray at least once a day? 61% of my generation said yes. 42% of your generation said yes. And do you believe in heaven? 74% of my generation said yes, and 67% of your generation said yes. Now you can see that those numbers are going down in every category. And you don't need a newspaper to tell you that, because how many of you know somebody who used to go to church who no longer goes to church? Raise your hands if you know somebody. Yeah, look at all those hands. Now, let me tell you 2 things about that. Number 1, our church is doing much better than many churches. As people are turning away in a secular world from all things religious, many churches are being hurt by it. Our church is weathering that storm much better than most churches, and especially much better than most Christian churches. I know you think, whoa, but everybody's leaving the church. No, if you actually look at the numbers, there's not any more leaving now than have left at any generation in the history of the church. People left in Kirtland, Ohio. People left once the Saints moved to Salt Lake. I mean, people have left the church in every generation. And the numbers aren't that different. The difference is that now people leave very publicly. Where people used to just step away and nobody knew about it, now they leave on TikTok, and thousands of people watch them as they sit and gripe about the church. And so because it's so public, then we think, oh, everybody's doing it. But that's not the case. The church is strong. The youth of the church are strong. The young single adults of the church are strong. And there's not that many more leaving now than there were when I was growing up. It's just happening in a much more public way. Now, what scares me about people making the choice to leave isn't that we have a few less people in the church. It doesn't bother me that we have fewer people sitting in the pews. What bothers me is that we have the church in fewer people. That's what bothers me. Because they're going to face the same challenges we face. They're going to face the same struggles and the same trials and the same heartbreaks. And they're choosing to do it in the absolute hardest way possible. They're choosing to do it without God, without Christ, without the church. By leaving the church, it doesn't mean that they escape the trials of life. It just means they escape the blessings that can help them deal with the trials of life. Our view of the Godhead is very different than the view of many Christians. Most Christians believe that God and Jesus are the same being, and that God/Jesus is a spirit. And we don't believe that. We know that God and Jesus are separate beings and that they have physical, tangible, perfected bodies. Well, how do we know that? Well, we could turn to some scriptures that talk about it, but mostly we know it because of Joseph Smith. He saw them. That's what Jackson was playing about when he played that song. He saw them. Yeah, but maybe Joseph Smith lied. If you haven't heard that yet, you certainly will. Lots of people say, oh, he just made it all up. He just made up that story. But people who go there don't understand why we lie. Because you certainly don't lie in an effort to be found out. You don't tell your teacher, I didn't get my homework done because aliens beamed down and sucked it into the mother ship. No, your teacher's never going to believe that. So what do you tell? Well, not you, because you don't lie. But what do your friends tell the teacher? Yeah, the dog ate my homework. Oh my gosh, my mom washed it in the washing machine. Oh, the one I hear at BYU where little children have signed an honor code is my printer broke. Every time a paper is due, you have no idea how many broken printers fill Utah Valley. It's just an epidemic. Now, why do they say that to me? Because it's something I might believe. Do you think Joseph Smith was that different? If he were lying, then he would have said what everybody wanted to hear. He would have said, I saw God, and God and Jesus are one being, and God and Jesus are spirit. That's what people wanted to hear. That's what they would have believed. And yet he didn't say that. He said, God and Jesus are separate beings with physical, tangible, perfected bodies. Whoa, that is so far out of the realm of believability that Joseph Smith proves himself either a horrible liar, I mean, he was bad at it, or a speaker of truth. Joseph Smith himself taught that true faith isn't just believing there's some God out there in the universe. True faith isn't just believing in some higher power. True faith is knowing God, knowing his attributes, what he's like, knowing his plan for us, and knowing that our lives are being lived in accordance with that plan. See, you want to walk away from the church? Say goodbye to your whole concept of God. I had some kid at BYU say to me, I don't believe in Joseph Smith anymore, but I still believe in God and Jesus. And I said, look, I don't mean to be rude, but do you realize how stupid you just sounded? He's like, what? I said, you don't believe in Joseph Smith, but you still believe in God and Jesus. You separated them. Who taught you to do that? Who taught you that they're separate beings? Joseph Smith. So don't tell me you don't believe in Joseph Smith anymore when your whole concept of God, your whole covenant relationship with him is thanks to Joseph Smith. My son served a mission in Japan. And I said to him, wow, that must have been really interesting to teach people who don't have a Christian background. He says, oh, yeah, it was, because they don't know the Bible stories. They don't celebrate Christmas. They don't celebrate Easter. I said, how on earth did you get them to join the church? He said, they read the Book of Mormon. And then when they gained a testimony that Joseph Smith was a prophet, then they believed any being who happened to come to Joseph Smith. And we know that that being was Jesus Christ. You hear people say, I believe in Jesus, but I don't believe in Joseph Smith. But there are people in Japan who say, the only reason I believe in Jesus is because of Joseph Smith. What do you get here that you don't get anywhere else? A knowledge of God and a covenant relationship with him that suddenly allows this higher power to have power in your life. And I don't want to walk away from that. I don't want to say goodbye to that. How many of you have ever heard somebody testify that this is the only true church? How many have ever said those words? Yeah, we hear them, we say them all the time. But some people get kind of bent out of shape when you say those words. If you haven't yet run into somebody who gets a little uptight when you say this is the only true church, then you will run into somebody who will get uptight because they don't like that. They don't think that sounds very tolerant. And in today's world, tolerance trumps all. So by hang, we better be tolerant, and we sure don't want anybody to feel bad because we say we're the only true church. The reason that people get uptight is because they don't understand why we say it. We're not having a competition. How many of you have ever gone to a high school game? How many have ever yelled these words? We're number one. We're number one. How many have ever yelled those words? Do you realize that every high school in the nation yells those words? I have never been to a high school game and heard people scream, we're number 439. We're number 400. No. Everybody's number one. Why? Because it's a spirit of competition. But we're not screaming we're number one, saying we're better than everybody else. We're saying we're the only true church in a spirit of invitation. President Boyd K. Packer used to say, truth's like a piano keyboard. Some churches play a few notes, some churches play several octaves, but we're the only church that has a whole piano. So when we are saying we're the only true church, we're just inviting people to come and see what we can add to the truths that already fill their lives. If they think they can play some pretty music now, man, we want them to know that they can play like Jackson. I mean, we want them to know that they can play with the whole piano. And I don't want to lose the whole piano. You walk away from the church, say goodbye to the whole piano, have fun playing chopsticks the rest of your life. I don't want to play chopsticks the rest of my life. I want to play like Jackson. And to do that, you have to have the whole piano. Is that we do have something that sets us apart, but it's not the Spirit. Muslims feel the Spirit. Hindus feel the Spirit. Jews feel the Spirit. Catholics feel the Spirit. The Spirit will come and go in their lives. What we have that they don't have is the gift of the Holy Ghost. And that's the chance to have the Spirit with you always. Now, the good news is that most of you received that gift when you were 8 years old. The bad news is that most of you received that gift when you were 8 years old. And then young people say to me, Brother Wilcox, I've never felt the Spirit. And I say, yeah, you have. They go, And I go, And they go, And then we're fighting again. I've never felt the Spirit. No, of course you felt the Spirit. Stephen Covey used to tell students at BYU, when they'd say, I've never felt the Spirit, he'd say, you're like a fish. You're swimming around in the water. And you're going, water? What water? I don't see any water. When does a fish notice the water? When he's out of the water. And then he goes, whoa, I was in the water all the time. Sometimes that's what has to happen with young Latter-day Saints. They have to do something stupid, distance themselves from the Spirit. And then they say, I was feeling it all the time. I just didn't recognize it. We sing, the Spirit of God like a fire is burning. I felt that fire, but I don't feel it every day. I'm kind of glad I don't feel it every day. I mean, you couldn't even get through your morning, for Pete's sake. The alarm would go off and you'd be like, whoa, whew, feeling the Spirit. Yeah. Then you'd be in the shower going, whoa, and you'd be pouring your Captain Crunch. I mean, you couldn't even get through the morning. So it's a good thing you're not feeling the Spirit like a fire all the time. Sometimes I think maybe we ought to sing, the Spirit of God like a furnace is working. See, when it's a cold day outside and you walk into your house, you don't notice the furnace. None of you walk in your house and go, the furnace is working. No, when do you notice the furnace? When it's not working. And then you don't sit there and say, I guess this is my new normal. No, you call somebody because you want to get it fixed, because you want to feel, catch the word, comfortable. Now you want to leave the church? Well, say goodbye to the knot in the end of your balloon. Say goodbye to the gift of the Holy Ghost. Oh, you'll feel the Spirit now and then, but you're not going to be able to feel it always. And that means you're going to miss the guidance. You're going to miss the testimony. You're going to miss the direction, the peace, the comfort the sanctification that Spirit can bring into your life. I don't want to miss those things. I need them too desperately. My kids played church. They'd pull out the stuffed animals. They'd put them on the couch. They'd sing the song. They'd do the talk. Got a little nervous when my daughter started blessing the sacrament, but they'd play church. And I used to think, oh, that's so cute. It's so cute. But now I'm older and I realize it wasn't just cute. It's actually what most people in the world are doing. They're playing church. They're sincere. They want it to count, but they don't have the authority. They don't have God's permission so that the things they do really count on earth and in eternity. I lived in Wyoming while I was getting my PhD, and I was working at the university in what they called the writing center. And in the writing center, people would come and get help with their papers, and I would supervise a few tutors who worked there with me. Well, one girl came late to work, and I said, "Where have you been?" She says, "I'm sorry, but I was at my wedding rehearsal, and I'm just so upset. I just don't like those words." What words is she talking about? Till death do you part. Most churches don't say that anymore. Now they say, as long as you both shall live. It's the same thing. And she didn't like those words. She said, I feel like I'm getting divorced the day I'm getting married. I was like, whoa, this is like a missionary moment. This is a missionary moment. I mean, Brad, come on, don't blow it. Don't blow it. So I said, in my church, we get married in the temple where we are sealed for time and all eternity. And she went, oh, I love that. And I said, fill the font. I'm going to baptize this girl right now. No, she didn't want to get baptized. She didn't even want to meet the missionaries, but she did want to rewrite her wedding ceremony. So she went to the minister and she said, may I write my own ceremony? And he said, for an extra fee. So she paid the extra money and she wrote her own ceremony. And I sat there in that Protestant church and listened as the preacher sealed them for time and all eternity. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm freaking out. I'm like, whoa. Everybody in the church was like, oh, that is so special. I was like, that is so wrong. That's just like wrong, like lightning bolt, wrong. Why? It's a free country. They can say whatever they want to say. Why did I feel it was wrong? Authority. No authority. They just didn't have permission to say those words. And so did it count eternally? No, because they were playing church. And in our church, we don't play church. We have the authority to make that count on earth and in heaven. And that is something I don't want to say goodbye to. How come the blacks didn't get the priesthood until 1978? What's up with that, Brother Wilcox? What, Brigham Young was a jerk? Members of the church were prejudiced? Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe instead of saying, why did the blacks have to wait until 1978? Maybe what we should be asking is, why did the whites and other races have to wait until 1829? 1,829 years they waited. And why did the Gentiles have to wait until after the Jews? And why did everybody in the house of Israel except the tribe of Levi have to wait until, when you look at it like that, then instead of trying to feel like you have to figure out God's timeline, we can just be grateful. Grateful right down to our socks that the blacks received the priesthood in 78. Grateful right down to our socks that Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery had the priesthood restored to them in 1829. Maybe we should just feel grateful. Yeah, but Brother Wilcox, how come the girls don't have the priesthood? I mean, that's what I want to know. How come the girls don't have the priesthood? What's up with that? Girls, you're going to hear a lot of people say a lot of things, and many of them say them with very angry voices. But just because somebody's angry doesn't necessarily make him or her right. Just because somebody's loud doesn't necessarily make him or her right. I was at a professional conference for BYU. I had a name tag. It said Brad Wilcox, Brigham Young University. Some lady walked up to me that I didn't even know. She sees my name tag and she's like, oh, why don't you give women the priesthood? Just like that. And I said, good to meet you too. And then I asked, what's the priesthood? And she said, well, I don't know, but I think the women should have it. Seriously? I don't know, but the women should have it. What's malaria? I don't know, but the women should have it. I mean, I'm going to let her voice that's very shallow drown out my testimony just because she's loud? No way. Girls, listen closely, because I don't know that you'll ever have somebody explain it quite this point blank again. You have access to every priesthood blessing. There is not one priesthood blessing that you are denied. And you serve with priesthood authority. When you are set apart in a class presidency, or you're set apart as a missionary, or in any calling in the church, you serve with priesthood authority. You will go to temples where you will be endowed with priesthood power, and you will dress in priesthood robes. How come the girls don't have the priesthood? What the heck are they talking about? Your life exudes priesthood. It's surrounded by priesthood. It emanates priesthood. So what is it that women don't have? Two things. One, priesthood keys, and two, priesthood ordination. Well, how come women don't have priesthood keys? Well, how come most men in the church don't have priesthood keys? So how many men in a ward have priesthood keys? The Spirit is whispering. The Spirit is whispering. Oh, you knew it. You knew it. I'm so proud of you. Let's name them. The bishop, the elders quorum president, the teachers quorum president, and the deacons quorum president. So girls, don't mix keys up with influence. What else don't women have? Priesthood ordination. They're not ordained to the priesthood. Well, how come they're not ordained to the priesthood? Maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe we should be asking, why don't they need to be? So what is it that sisters are bringing with them from a premortal life that men are trying to learn through ordination? Maybe that's the question that ought to be keeping us up at night. You want to walk away from the church? Walk away from anything that lets anything in your life count or matter beyond this life.
Now, this has been a hard week for me. We're going to be speaking tonight about trusting in the Lord. And this has been one of those weeks when I have needed to trust in the Lord. Some of you may have heard about a talk I gave last Sunday night. Now, it wasn't the first time that I've given that talk, and it wasn't the first time I've used the ideas I shared or the line of reasoning that I used to try to address some difficult topics. In the past, I failed to see how my comments could be seen as insensitive and hurtful. And I'm very grateful for friends like Brother Corbett, who have helped me and corrected me and taught me. Once again, I apologize. And I'm grateful more than ever for the atonement of Jesus Christ, which allows us to trust in the Lord.